And we are finally live. Thank goodness. There we go, you guys.
Yeah.
We are done with technology issues, hopefully for tonight. Fingers crossed. Zoom finally likes us. Facebook is finally starting to accept us. But as I just discussed with these ladies, in the beautiful town of Holly Springs right now, we have a storm going through. And if you sneeze on my neighborhood, the internet goes out. So fingers crossed we keep power. But if for any reason something happens, I will pack up my laptop real quick and run to the studio, which is right just down the street, and we'll try and hook this back up. So fingers crossed everything goes well. But you guys, I am so excited to have these three amazing women sitting in front of me tonight. I'm so excited community chats are back because the 2 weeks off was very weird after being able to do these for several weeks in a row. For those of you guys who are new to community chats, the idea just started about the beginning of May. We all said, I am so sick and tired of being in the four walls of my house. I am sick and tired of only talking to the people in my household, but we love them. But we need to talk to real people again. And there was just a lot of hard stuff going on. And there were a lot of people that had these feelings of anxiety and depression and frustration and all of the things that come along with being a small business owner, dealing with a worldwide pandemic. And we said, let's just all get together, find a safe place that we can sit down and just open up and talk about the hard stuff. And that's how community chat started last month. But then a couple weeks ago, after the murder of George Floyd, I called up the advisory board and said, you guys, here's the thing, I can't go on Tuesday on community chats and talk about COVID, because the idea behind it was to talk about the hard stuff in life that it's hard to talk about with your friends, it's hard to talk about with your family, but they're the things that need to be talked about. And so I reached out to two of these beautiful ladies, Amber and Kristin, and said, you guys, I'm gonna do something crazy and I am probably nuts and I don't know what's going to happen, but I think that we need to start a discussion. And so they absolutely said, yes, we're on, which I'm so thankful for that. And we had something planned out for that Tuesday night, but then with Blackout Tuesday, we said, we're gonna go ahead and cancel for right now. We'll pick up when we can. We muted our voices for the week and then sat back and listened and learned lots of things. Then when the following Tuesday came, I called up Amber and I said, I don't think we're ready yet. And she said, follow your gut and follow your heart. And if that's what it's saying, I said, it is. And she said, good, then let's do it another week. So we all sat down and talked and said, these chats were a little bit more casual. Oh, we've lost Chanel, she'll be back. Maybe she lost her internet. They were supposed to be very casual, but at the same time, looking at this, being an educator and knowing that Bend Raleigh is all about education and helping the betterment of everyone, I felt that it was really important to use this as a place for education as well, a place for us all to be able to learn and talk, and this be a safe place, and all those things wrapped up into one. So I'm going to pull my phone up here just to make sure I don't get a message from Chanel. But tonight, what we're going to do is, this was actually inspired by Amber, because she kept telling me when I kept calling her frantic, what were your words to me, Amber? I can't what with an elephant?
You can't eat the elephant all in one bite.
Yes. She kept saying it over and over. And I believe my first comment back to you was, I said, but girl, I'm hungry. And then she told me to calm down and slow my roll. So here I am slowing my roll, thank you. But the idea tonight was how you can start to make an impact locally with little macro changes. So the idea is that little tiny changes can make a big, big impact over time. And so you don't have to eat the entire elephant in one bite. But the idea is that little by little, true change can really happen. And there's a lot to digest what's going on in the world right now. I think even every day what's going on in the world is changing, both locally, nationally, in our homes. Discussions are happening that have never happened before. And there's a lot of beautiful things that are going on. So as horrible as the last, couple weeks have been to go through a lot of these things, there's some true change that I see happening.
Yeah.
And that's so beautiful. And it's horrible that another Black man had to be murdered for the entire country to wake up. But seeing that start to happen, It's a lot to take on, but these lovely ladies are going to be here tonight to kind of guide us through and give us some ideas, brainstorm with us on ways that we can help be a part of this change. So ladies, I want you guys to introduce yourselves real quick. Kristin, because you win and you're in the top corner, do you want to go first?
Sure. My name is Kristin Cook. I'm a corporate trainer by day, but I also have my own organization, Spectrum Navigation Services, where I do special ed navigation. I help parents along the way as they figure out their kids' IEPs and services and supports, figuring out what to ask along the way. I started that myself. My son's autistic, and ended up kind of going with friends, and it kind of expanded from there. My focus was never to primarily work with families of minority students, but somewhere along the way that became a part of it, because there weren't Black faces and Black voices that were talking about some of those hard things that are going on in our school systems and things that our kids are facing. And it was something that just kind of naturally occurred over time. So that's kind of where a lot of my focus is in the education realm, what we're seeing and teaching our children. But I grew up here in the Triangle. I grew up in Cary, went to local schools. Amber and I were talking beforehand. We went to the same high school, grew up with the other Amber in the same church. So
you need to identify yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a local native, even though I don't have an accent. Everybody's always like, where are you from? But I've been here since I was 6, so I claim it. So I am excited to be a part of tonight's conversation.
Me too, yes. Amber, we need to identify ourselves. Do we need to go Amber S and Amber R tonight? I don't know. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Kristin, I'm so excited you are here, you guys. I have known Kristin since how little? Little. Enough that I was the epitome of annoying the mess out of Kristin on a regular basis, and I will own that. But I love you for it. So I'm so happy that you're here, and especially Kristin has never been a part of anything with Bend Raleigh before, so I'm so grateful for you just saying, hey, Amber, I love what you're doing, and thanks for showing up for us tonight. Miss Amber Robinson, my other Amber, which I love because I don't even have, you're my only Amber friend.
I think I know maybe 1 or 2 other Ambers. So it's nice to like actually live close and have like communication on a regular basis with another Amber.
I love it. Well, can you tell the world who you are? I know a whole bunch of the ladies around here already know you, but can you introduce yourself for us?
Yes. My name is Amber Robinson. I'm a Raleigh-based wedding and portrait photographer, and I have an extensive background in leading really important conversations around diversity and inclusion. I've been talking about diversity and inclusion in the wedding industry for about 6 years now, and have built a platform. My business is built on the concept that we really need to be doing better, and that everyone who is part of the industry should be doing part of that. My kids go to a very interesting school called the Explorist School, and we love it there. And one of the things that we love the most about the Explorist School is that they have a motto that is, we are all crew. There are no passengers on this ship called Earth. And I really take that motto to heart, because as crew, we are called to work together to create innovative solutions to problems. And that's what I've been trying to do. That's what I'm hoping that we can, really talk about some of the things that we can do within our hearts, our homes, our communities, and the world to create change. I had a friend recently reach out to me that said, I really just don't feel like my voice is loud enough. And I asked her, do you know how tsunamis start? And she says, what? And I said, literally, a tsunami is started by a ship. You might hear my 5-year-old.
Hey, Avery.
She's in the bathtub. Just go with it.
Avery's singing us a song, you guys. This is the epitome of being an entrepreneur, being a mom, and trying to do it all. So please let her sing because
She's singing.
We are not going to put her light out tonight.
Oh, no.
The concept of a tsunami, and we all know how it can change the landscape of anywhere that it hits. But when you look at it from almost a molecular level, it is literally the shifting of plates by mere millimeters that create something that can change a landscape. And so my goal in this conversation and with the conversations that I'm having with friends and allies and colleagues and family members is that if you have the ability to shift only a millimeter, then you have the ability to change the landscape. And so I'm really, really, really just honored to be part of this conversation with Ben Raleigh tonight. So thank you, Amber, so much for having me here.
And this is why I love you. This, if you need some sort of a metaphor, I'm thinking.
Oh, I got
them all.
I'm a storyteller. And so I like to help people understand situations that they normally wouldn't understand by telling a story.
Yeah. Oh, I love your heart. Oh man, I'm so excited. All right, and Miss Chanel, you're back. So if you guys saw me earlier, I'm texting and she's like, Wi-Fi is out, power is out. Are you literally in a dark house right now?
Yeah, but my cell phone, I mean, there's light. Where there's a will, there's a way.
There is.
I told you those hotspots on standby. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we said when you're a family who has 4 gig because you're always on I was like, y'all, I would make it through the talk without going over on my data. I'm like, I am so glad you were able to hop back on. So can you tell us a little bit about you, a little bit about yourself?
I'm an entrepreneur originally from Philadelphia. Family grew up though in Atlanta, North Georgia. And so I am here by way of Atlanta. I'm an entrepreneur and I got into this people's rights sort of role, really just trying to help. We had some younger folks that were in high school. They wanted to make their voices known. And I just really said, how can I help you with that? My background is in PR, operations, that sort of thing, corporately. And so I went to lend a hand and it really exploded. I'm here in Holly Springs and we are a town that was once predominantly Black and since 1990 has made a huge shift and is now 78% white, 12% Black. So like that big shift. And I'm newer here. I've only been here a couple years. So finding that history was something I had to kind of dig for. And the more digging I did, the more I saw that there were things that, that needed changing, people that wanted to express their concerns. And when you've got that sort of gentrification, you've got that shift of the population, the reality is that we're better together. And in order to make change, we're going to have to figure it out together. So that's what we're doing.
I love it. And you have the poster behind you. So, okay. So can you make the shameless plug for Impact Holly Springs right now? So while people are on here that they can maybe take a peek at it. Well, because I just saw today, I've been a part of the group. I didn't realize you had a page now.
Well, the page, it did start as a group. And it started as a private group on purpose. We wanted to give people the liberty to ask questions, as informed as they could. And then we would come in and do a little bit of correcting. Hey, maybe you don't want to say that. Maybe that's not the right way. Had you ever thought of this? This is why you see this. And trying to really explain the process so that we could have a healthier dialogue. So it was created as a private group originally on purpose. Now, in a week, it's almost 900 members. And so we had to add a page because still we want to house, we want to be able to reflect what we're doing across the country, across the world. But that conversation between, maybe your neighbor, we want that private. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah, so go check that out. It's called Impact Holly Springs. We're going to talk about it in a little bit. But right now, what I'm going to do is we're going to go around to each of the ladies because they've been brainstorming up some great ideas for some real actionable, tangible things that we can do. Because what we want you to do is be able to walk away tonight and say, okay, I can be a part of change. It's going to be a little bit overwhelming, but if I take it small, step by step, it'll come a little bit slowly, but true change can happen out of that. So I know Kristin was making lists because we were talking about this earlier, because that's how Kristin rolls. I love it. So Kristin, tell me about some of the things that you were thinking about that you can share with us that could be helpful.
Well, part of this, I think a lot of people are doing a lot of self-reflection right now. And some people are feeling like that's the way to go. I can just kind of reflect internally and we're good. But the fact is that there have to be hard conversations for this to really work.
Mm-hmm.
And I would encourage people to have some of these tough conversations. Now, you will have minority friends who will absolutely shut that down and be like, right now, like, I don't even want to hear that.
Yeah.
Being a storyteller, like Amber said, or being a person that is open to giving that emotional labor is not everybody.
No.
I have friends that are like, I don't want to hear it. Don't talk to me about it. You can go Google it. Leave me alone. I'm a person who is like, I will sit down and talk with you if you want to learn about it. And so if you have people in your circle that don't want to talk to you about this, that's okay. Okay.
Yeah, and you have to be able to respect that. And that's coming from, like, even when I would call Amber and I would call Kristin and I'm like, you guys, I have a question. And I was fully prepared and fully ready for them to be like, no, I'm not in a place right now that I can talk about it. And no matter how much I'm like, I want to be able to talk to somebody about it. If your friend is not one in a place where they can talk about it, they have to protect their heart. They have to protect their own mental capacity. And if that's not something that they can handle, you have to be able to respect that. Yeah, that's so true. Can I say to you guys, anybody who's watching, if you have questions for any of these ladies as we go on, leave them in the chat and I'm going to be reading them off to them as we go along. So if you have any questions, leave them there and I'll relay. Sorry, go ahead, Kristin.
Oh, you're fine. But part of the self-reflection has to be, what does my circle look like? Do I know any Black people? And Amber and I had a very candid conversation the other week where I was like, there are a lot of white people in my circle that maybe would consider themselves like friends, but as I've become an adult, I've kind of figured out, like, if you've never crossed the threshold of my home, we're probably not as close as you think that we are.
I brought up the same, I think, Amber, in one of our conversations, I brought up that same exact thing. Like, if you really evaluate your friendships with Black people, I have a friend who posted a beautiful post that somebody had written about their Black friend that was kind of the token in the group. You see all the photos and there's his little brown face. But like, I went to the sleepovers at your house. We were in Girl Scouts together. We could do all the things together, been at your house, snacking, know your family, cookouts, but you've never been to my house. We are not as close as you thought that we were.
No.
And that is something that has really stood out to me in my adult life. And something that I never noticed kind of culturally about us as Black people. Like, we're really particular about who's coming in our home and in our space. Mm-hmm. And that was something that occurred to me when I went to a viewing of the movie Racial Taboo that the town of Cary did for Black History Month a couple of years ago. And the gentleman that did the movie, he's a white gentleman, and he was like, I want to learn about these things. And he realized that he didn't have any Black friends. And he said, well, I know who to go ask. I'm going to go ask my white liberal friends. And then he went to them and they didn't have any Black friends either. Like, they would be the ones that are probably like, right now, they're woke, they're online, they're Black Lives Matters, but they don't know any Black people. So
Nella's frozen, you guys, by the way. She's
the best frozen face ever.
For a second, I was like,
I'm not just making that face.
Chanel, I love you. You're frozen right now, and you have a very shocked look on your face. And I thought you were just like completely terrified of Kristin's discussion. For those of you who are on the call,
she's like, no, it's just my hot spot.
Chanel is on a hot spot because she lost power, so she's coming back in just a second. How about this, Chanel, my love? I'm going to see if I can stop your video for a hot second so that you don't look terrified of Kristin's face. And then, oh God, no, she's gone. Okay, just kidding.
She'll be back.
She'll come back. She'll come back.
She'll come back. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was like, Chanel, are you okay?
It's like she's frozen.
We had to take care of all of our friends here. Okay.
Yeah, Elsa came
Continue.
on.
I thought that was really crazy. So tell us more about how this one gentleman then started going to his friends to kind of do this self-analyzation here.
Yeah, I mean, he really started by looking at his circle and realized that he couldn't know anything about that perspective or understand that because it wasn't anything that was around him. It wasn't anything that was in his circle. And when we look at that circle, we have to look at, what do our friendships look like? People will have children that have friends that are minorities, but they as adults don't have any minority friends. You have to be showing that inclusion, because somewhere along the way that stops, because our kids are modeling kind of what we see, and we have this separation. But really reflecting on, do I even have people in my circle that that I could even find this information from or have these talks with? If you don't, coming to something like this is really great, or getting online and looking for information. That's a really big thing. But I would evaluate those relationships. I would also really dig deep to find out information yourself prior to having some of those tough conversations. Because what I've seen a lot in the last couple of weeks is a what do I do? What do you need us to do? And I'm like, there are TED Talks, books, Oprah, dissertations.
You guys, it's fabulous. It literally says, where do we go from here?
Yes, I mean, there is so much stuff out there. Literally, go look for it. Okay, if you were gonna go do a recipe, you can even go on Pinterest. Today I was on Pinterest, like, look at y'all having so much stuff. The things that you use regularly, you can use as tools to find out information. And there's going to be stuff. Yes, don't just go to your Black friend and go, hey girl, I was wondering if you could tell me where to find out information on this. Because
so Bend Raleigh, Amber actually gave us and said, here is some graphics with some amazing resources, post it. And I said, yes, done. But I mean, you guys, there's literally no excuse right now for not saying, I don't know where to start. We posted something on Ben Raleigh's page. If you literally even probably Google, where do I start? You will come up with something. If you own Hulu, I will tell you, Hulu has a drop down right now that is called Black Stories.
Yes.
If you are on Amazon Prime, there's literally a tab that's running across that says interesting content or something about Black lives. Like there's no excuse. But
I think it's also important that whenever you are doing this research for yourself, that you need to be researching from the Black perspective.
Yes.
All right. So like if a white man writes a book about slavery, like it might be historically correct, but does it actually tell the experience, right? Like try to stay away from movies that have that white savior complex, like The Help. It's a great movie. I love Octavia Spencer, but that is not the type of movie that you want to watch to get woke, right? It's not. That movie makes white folks feel really good about what happened during
it does.
Right? But like the thing is that if you are getting warm fuzzies right now as a white person in America, then you probably aren't researching the way you should be.
That's true. I have cried and screamed and yelled more times at a shows, because right now with everything I have going on, I'm like, I'm literally just putting stuff on the TV or putting stuff in the background. I would love to read, but I don't have the attention span to read right now. So I'm having people read things to me or listening to talks or watching movies. And I think that's an amazing thing, because yeah, if you get the warm fuzzies after you watch a movie, you're probably not watching the right ones right now.
Yeah.
If you are
there is a place for those feelings. Like, I don't want to dismiss those feelings, but also if your intent is to really learn about why there is so much pain, why there is so much heartache, why things are the way they are, you have to really be willing to dig deep and get into that uncomfortable feeling. And yes, it is going to be uncomfortable. You're going to want to turn it off, but you can't. And so like, I think that's the history has been, especially with white folks, I'm like, oh, I can't watch that. You know, like, I can't watch that. And like, now is the time.
It's real.
Now is the time for you to sit through it and like feel uncomfortable. I think that is, growth happens in uncomfortable places. Like, I've never met anyone that says like, oh man, I came into this new realization and that journey felt so good. Like, it never does. Like, growth is uncomfortable. So in order to grow, like, you have to watch it. You have to sit there and take it in and really feel because if you're uncomfortable with it, you can only imagine like what, you know, the people that actually experienced it, the Black and brown people that experienced, like, you know, like, what are they feeling?
I watched on that list that Amber sent us that we posted last week or so. I literally just started going down the list, and I've started, you know, we started with 13th, and then we went to the next one and the next one. And I think one of the ones I got to, it was probably 11 o'clock at night, and I think it was the third or fourth one down the list. So I had been watching movies for like days at that point. And I got to American Son, which was, I literally, for the first time, I had been through all those kind of different experiences, but American Son is Kerry Washington, and it talks about her and her separated husband and their biracial son. And for like that one for me kind of hit home for my family, and I'm sitting there thinking and crying, and I'm like, I can't imagine going through that. And then it's like you said, like at the end of these movies, if you can't wake up and say, can you imagine putting yourself in that person's shoes? Like, that's what you need to be paying attention to right now. And that's what you need to be learning from. I think Kristin said, you said too, that you had some really good resources that you had pulled together. So you guys, tomorrow morning, I'm going to be putting together an email with some of the things that we're talking about tonight too, so that we have those by hand. Amber, I wanted to ask a question that's going to go from both you and kind of Kristin at the same time. Kristin, you were talking about how you really need to take a look at your circle of friends and look at what that circle of friends looks like. And so here's a really uncomfortable question, and I'm going to put myself out there because I don't care. This is how we learn. I had a very uncomfortable question that I took to, and I posed to Amber. And I said, and it was on the terms of Vendrali, because if you're here and you're on this video, you have to have seen the stuff that I've been posting. And I will say, Vendrali, there is a very, very, very lack of diversity in this group. It's no surprise. If you look through the 3,000 people that are following our Facebook page, if you see the people that are showing up on a regular basis, there is no diversity. And we can get into some of that later. But I literally told Amber, and I said, my intent when I took over was that we would slowly make a change, that, you know, it would be a change that came from what would we do, you know, to offer things that were inclusive to everyone, offer things that appealed to people from different backgrounds or, you know, different places in life. And I had never planned on standing up on a podium and saying, guess what, guys, this is what Vendrali looks like and we're going to change it. But we did. And so what I asked Amber is, I said, listen, I said, in my own real life, like, I never walked up to somebody and said, you look different than me, so I want you to be my friend. I was like, that's not how I roll. Like, if I'm going to be friends with somebody and I want them to be my friend, it's because I've sat down, I've had a conversation, I've learned about them, I respect them, and I love them as a person, and I want to be a part of their lives, and I want to be in their lives, and vice versa. I said, so how do you how do you try and diversify your group, your circle of friends, without going up to somebody and being like, hey, you look different than me. Can we be friends? Like, and I told Amber, I was like, I can't do that. And she said, and Amber, can you please give your response to what you told me?
I told you, I said, you know, so whenever you're thinking about our networks and our circles, the people that we trust, all of them have something that is adding to our life, our well-being, so like it is a give and take, right? So like I'm not friends with anyone that I get nothing out of, right? So thinking about when you want to diversify your inner circles, like, can I offer you a different perspective? If that is what you are looking for in a friend, is a different perspective, then I think it's okay to say, hey, Amber, I really enjoy how you interact with people, and I'm looking for someone that can offer a different perspective in my life right now. Do you have the bandwidth for that? Do you have room in your heart for that? And for me, if I feel like that person is coming to me genuinely, now there's a difference between like using someone for their perspective, right? There has to be a give and take. But also, sometimes I think we overthink things. I actually have a shirt that says, excuse me while I overthink this.
I have that
I have one
shirt.
too.
But I think that we overthink things to the point that we talk ourselves out of something, of a lot of things that we know we should be doing. And if we lead with honesty, I feel like if someone comes to me and says, just like Amber, like you trusted that I was going to receive your message, but you didn't know for sure.
Oh, I was terrified to ask you that question. I was like, because to me, the way that I thought growing up, like asking somebody to be my friend because they look different than me, like that was almost, I thought of that as racism. Like if I go up to somebody, I'm like, you look different than me. You have a different background than me. You have different experiences than me. I want to be friends. Like to me, that was almost judging somebody, and not judging somebody. I don't know the right words to say, but
there's a difference between racist and racial. Right? So if I say, oh, there's a Black girl over there, that's not racist. No. That is racial. I'm identifying her by her race, right? Yeah. Now, if I were to call her a derogatory name, then that could turn racist. But I think that we have to, I understand that especially white folks right now, y'all are like on thin ice, eggshells. There's like sea monsters that you think are going to like come up and like, but it is better to show up imperfectly than to not show up at all. Right. Yeah. So
I agree.
I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I say things and like the minute they come out my mouth, I'm like, why the heck did I just say that? Should have thought about that for 3 more seconds before I said it. Sometimes the filter does not always engage at the right time. But I think that if you show up honestly with an open heart, that always comes across.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I had a friend that said, Amber, oh my gosh, she called me. It was a white girl. She's a close friend of mine. And she goes, Amber, I had no idea. And I was like, that is what we're going to talk about. Whatever it is you called me for, we'll wait. We're going to talk about how you had no idea.
Wow. I love that you say, like, when you come at it from, and I think this is what really touched me was you said, if you come at it from a place of honesty and you're willing to be, like Kristin said earlier, like if you're willing to put yourself out there and be vulnerable and be corrected, like if you say something wrong, if you're willing to say, oops, I didn't realize, or I'm so sorry. And if you come at it from a place of just honesty and vulnerability of like, hey, I want to learn and I'm going to make mistakes, just do it. And so I'll tell you guys, I sent out a long email, I think it was like Friday, to everyone in Bend Raleigh through the email list. And it was just basically like, it was, again, a long-winded story of, I never thought I was going to come out on a pedestal and say this, but here it is. And I knew that I wanted to say it. I knew that I wanted to put it all out there because we're going to go through a whole bunch of big changes. And like Amber said, it's going to be uncomfortable. And you guys, here's a self-confession for you. I saved all of the emails that I got from all the businesses this week, when everybody sent out their warning thing from COVID of like, this is what we're doing to keep our families protected and blah, blah. When everybody started releasing their statements this week of, all the companies are saying, we're doing this, we support this, I literally put them in a folder because I was like, you guys, these people have giant PR teams that they're paying tons of money. They must have the right words. And I put them in a folder so that when it was time for me to put together my letter to our community, I was going to use them for reference. And then when I went to go write my letter, I said, excuse my language, this is bullshit. And I literally didn't look at them. And I said, I'm going to speak from the heart. I'm going to say, if I mess up, call me out. But I would rather them be my words and coming from a place of honesty and insane vulnerability. And my last question was like, hey, if you want to be a part of this, send me a message. Like, I want to talk to you. And was I terrified when I pressed the send button? Yeah, because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to watch the numbers start to decrease on our email list. But you know what? Don't care, because if this isn't in line with who you want to be in the community you want to be a part of, like, I'm okay that, this is not the right fit for you anymore. But coming from a place of vulnerability, I'm like, I'm scared. Like, what is this going to look like? But you know what happened? I had a whole bunch of amazing women that reached out to me and said, I was on your mailing list before I ever showed up to an event. I've maybe been to one event, but I want to be a part. And you guys, like, I bawled. I was like, okay, you know what? There is room for change. And so I think, like you said, Amber, going back to that, like, be vulnerable, be willing to be called out, but amazing things can happen when you step out.
What happens whenever we lead with our heart, and I talk very openly on my business platform about politics, about diversity. And when I started doing that, people said, oh, Amber, you should not do that. You're going to lose followers. People are not going to hire you. And I said, you know what? For every person that leaves, it makes room for someone who really wants to be there. And what actually happened is that I started aligning myself with people who think just like me, people who want to spend their money with me, people who don't question the prices, people that have the same values as me. And so it had the opposite effect as the people of what people said that it was going to have. And I mean, honestly, now, if I were to stop talking about like controversial issues right now, people will probably be like, Amber, what happened to you?
What's wrong? Are you okay?
Amber's not actually there. It's true. And you know what? That's really sad that coming from a PR and a marketing standpoint, a lot of times as business owners, we hear, ooh, don't put that on Facebook. You're going to lose followers. People aren't going to want to listen to you. And as a photographer too, Amber and I talked about this. The first time that I went to post sneak peeks from a gay wedding, I was terrified. I was like, I literally went and looked at the number of likes on my page. And then I asked myself, I'm like, wait a second. What am I doing? Like, why am I even listening to them? Why am I listening to the voices outside there telling me you shouldn't share what you love? You shouldn't share what you support. You're going to lose followers. Well, guess what?
Bye.
Did I lose any followers? No. And I'm sure that a lot of people, when that's happened to them or something similar, that has. But like Amber said, if there's no reason that if it's uncomfortable, and you don't feel comfortable there, then you don't have to be there. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be a part of somebody or follow someone or be a part of a community if your values don't align. And that's okay, because everybody's doing different times. And I think that speaks so true, Amber, that if you have the fear that you have to keep your mouth shut, then why? Especially, like if you work for corporate America and that's because they have rules in place that keep you from saying things because whatever, then that's your own business. But as an entrepreneur, to the people that are on here, the people that are part of Ben Raleigh.
That's why we became entrepreneurs, so we can make our own rules.
Yes. Say what you want to say.
So we don't have to listen to anyone else. No. And I think that if you are in an uncomfortable position that makes you want to leave something, before you leave, I think it's more productive to examine why you are uncomfortable.
Why you're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, what about the message? Yeah. What about the message or the shift bothers you?
Right.
I think when I think about your question of asking, like, how do we diversify the people around you? I'm like, we're everywhere. Like, I'm at the park. I'm at Marbles with my kid. I'm at like the grocery store. it's not like we're not some like accessible, right? And so it's really a reflection of people going like, why is this so uncomfortable to me? And, you know, people kind of want to go into that color blindness. After everything kind of went off in the last couple of weeks, as I told you, I went through one of these, like, I'm done with Facebook. I gotta get out of here. I think I unfriended like 500 people. I was like, I'm done. I cannot deal. Like, if you were quiet on the topic, if you like had nothing to say, but then you came out and you were like, what about all lives? I was like, delete. Like, I was so angry. I was so angry. And it wasn't just anger. It was hurt, because these were people that I knew. And I feel like there's so many things that people will say. Your sister Amber had made a post about, you know, like, and somebody that we grew up with they were right there, like, how are Black people treated any differently? And how, like, just had all these things to say, and was getting into these arguments. And I was like, I grew up with you. I grew up here with you. I grew up in the same church as you. And I have been called the N-word. Kids like mine, my kid was suspended 6 times his last year of preschool.
Preschool, you guys.
Preschool. The preschool to prison pipeline is real. It is real. I was in a discussion group the other week with some moms, and a mom said that they took their kids to Europe during track out, and her child came back. And what do you do when you come back from a trip like that? You're like, I saw the Eiffel Tower and I did this. And the teacher sent her a message telling her that her child was at school telling tales and she needed to send in proof. And it led to an interesting conversation, because first of all, why would you assume that this child is lying and make such an accusatory statement?
And why do you need proof?
And it puts Black parents in a weird space, because there's a part of you that's like, I ain't got to prove nothing to you, right? But there's also this like, well, now they're going to think I'm lying if I don't provide proof, right? Mm-hmm. And you're always trying to do this fine dance when it comes to,
but don't get mad, because then you're a threat, right? You can't.
Right, because if I get mad, it's going down. Yeah, I have had.
Why are you threatening me? Why
are you yelling? The tears are going to come, and it's going to be, I'm the angry Black lady. I have seen white parents go off in meetings on schools and call them like all kinds of crazy names and stuff. And I'm like, whoo, I would never. I could be so mad, okay, and would never do that. Because they would have the police up here in a hot second.
So quick.
They would feel threatened. I was going to, it's what happens. I mean, my son had the police called on him at 7. And that was such a horrific call for me, because I was just like, he's 7. And the disability community, the highest population group that receives disciplinary action against them in our school systems are Black disabled boys. And I will go into schools and I will see kids who clearly need help, who are just being labeled behavior problems. Mm-hmm. It's just like, well, I mean, even trying to get my own kid diagnosed, when we went to the doctor, it wasn't like, let's go through the checklist of things. It was like, well, is his dad in the home? What are you talking about? Like, just the most random of questions. And it would be like, well, my husband was here with him at the last appointment that we were here. But just these kind of microaggressions, and I say it all the time, the stuff that is building up right now with Black people, it is not about blatant racism, KKK, burning crosses stuff. It is these little microaggressions that are like paper cuts.
Death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yes, it is you're so well spoken. It is you know, well, you're not like
black.
You're not like, you know, those Black people. Well,
You're not black,
right?
Yeah.
Those types of statements where it's like, well, what does that even mean? And I feel like as I've gotten older, I've had to like really reflect upon that, because I started to interact and learn more as I actually interacted with more Black people who were different than me, who didn't grow up in white suburbia, who were showing me things that I had been, you know, hidden from growing up here in Cary, just living in my bubble. I was like, that stuff, yeah, I was like, that stuff doesn't exist. That was so long ago. I mean, I had a lady almost run me down in a crosswalk at my little first college way out in Western North Carolina and screamed the N-word at me. And I went to the campus police and I was like, excuse me, this woman almost ran me over. She was yelling racial slurs at me. And they were just kind of like, oh, yeah, we know who that is. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't. And I was so like taken aback, like when she was yelling at me, I was like, was she talking to me? What? Because I really had lived in this bubble where I wasn't like those Black people. I was, you know, different because I was the Black friend. And as I've gotten older, getting married to a Black man and seeing the things that, you know, he dealt with really through an adult eyes, raising a Black son. I mean, there are people that are bold. Like if you're his on the playground, there are people who will just be like, yeah, I don't want my kid to play with those kids. Like that's not something happening someplace else. That's happening right here. And some people are not even remotely smooth as they try to, you know, make sure that their kid is not playing with your kid or interacting with your child. And that's a hard reality to really face, that there are so many things going on. And I really have found myself struggling with people who I have known for my like entire life, not feeling compelled that my life is important, my child's life is important, our stories aren't important. This isn't, you know, like, oh, something they saw on TV. It's me, your friend that you know and you interact with, and I'm telling you it's real, and you're like, no, I don't. I think it's probably just an exaggeration, or you're quiet and complicit. Yeah. And that, you know, it's like, I don't delve into politics and whatever. And I'm like, this isn't politics. This is, I know somebody and I need to understand this. It shouldn't be I had no idea. Those, like Amber said, those conversations, like when I see that, it just makes me internally just like a little volcano, because I'm like, what do you mean? How have you not seen this?
Yeah. But then, like, you know, I talked to someone who lives in a very affluent white neighborhood, and we were talking about why there are no like C-suite executives that are minorities, let alone Black, at a lot of these companies that are like now taking a stand, right? And I want you to know, Amber, that I also have been saving these statements, but for a different reason, because I really want to see who actually changes. Right? But
I love how you've been calling people out, by the way, too. Amber is like in several local groups, and she's like, hey, FYI, if you use them,
yeah.
Bye.
I mean, because I think that you said, Kristin, that, you know, silence is complicit, and For me, because I, like you, grew up in white suburbia, we were the only Black family in our neighborhood, in our whole hood, just we were the only ones. And so I was like the Black friend, right? And whenever I would go to sleep, I was like, oh my gosh, can I touch your hair? Oh my gosh, like, do you wash it every day? Like these things that, but we were talking about why there are no C-suite executives, and he lives in this bubble because he's a C-suite executive, and he says like, well, they just don't apply. And first of all, I was like, I'm gonna call bullshit on that. They probably are applying. But if they're not applying, what are you doing to find people, right? And because I want to make sure that before we end this call that we have like action steps, because
we're talking all over the place. We need to get focused.
But I think that it's important because these conversations are important. But if we have the conversations without a deliverable, then I think they're pointless, right? Because people really need to know, like, what can I do? Like, how can I be that 3 millimeter fault line that creates a tsunami?
Yeah.
And like for what helps me is I always tell my white friends, like, let's start with you. Like, don't start with trying to change something else or someone else. Let's start by changing you. And like, for you to identify, when have you benefited from a racist society? When have you been the benefactor of white supremacy? Can we acknowledge that white privilege it's not a judgment? I'm not saying that you are something. Like, let's start by letting our defenses down. And like, if we can't let our defenses down right now, let's talk about why it triggers you whenever I say you have white privilege. Because for a lot of people, they're like, oh, I'm not racist. I'm like, didn't say anything about racist. I said that you have white privilege, and you do. You were born into it. You had nothing to do with it. You didn't choose it, but you have it. So how are you using it? Are you using it to help other people, or are you using it to only further a society that is like so deeply embedded with racism that when people talk out against it, they think they're un-American?
Yeah.
Right? So my action call is for everyone that's listening, for everyone who's having conversations, to first come to grips with how you have contributed.
Yes.
Whether it is directly or indirectly, on purpose or on accident. If you have ever been walking down the street and crossed to the other side because you see a Black man, you have contributed to racism. If you have ever felt afraid of something or someone because of the color of someone's skin, you have contributed to racism. If you have sat at Thanksgiving dinner while Uncle Bob makes racist jokes and you don't say anything, you've contributed to racism. And so I think that first we have to do the work inside of ourselves. And I say we because like Black folks have work to do, right? But around the issue of race, we have to do the work inside of ourselves first before we can change anyone else.
Yeah. Making those confessions are really hard. Can you also speak, though, too, because I feel like and I'm going to apologize. I don't remember whether it was you, Kristin, or you, Amber, but I know that we had this discussion about the fact of like, when you start to look at those things inside of you, like, that's good, but please don't turn around and use those to make yourself feel better.
Right.
Because we had that conversation last week.
I don't know. I can't remember. But it was a good one.
Like, we both had that conversation. When you have those moments, it is, while they're great, I'm glad that you're having it. And I've had conversations with multiple people in the past week who have come and been like, this is happening. I want to tell you about this thing that I'm doing. And I'm like, that's wonderful, but I'm definitely not the person to come to for a hand clap of praise or a pat on the back. This is something that just as a human, you should be doing.
Yeah.
My response to those people is, what took you so long?
Yeah, it's like, why are we just getting here?
Yeah.
You know,
We say, if you're looking for a pat on the back, please do not go to one of your Black friends, because they really don't want to hear it right now.
No.
If you need to talk out through those things, maybe a very, very close white friend who you both can say, you know, like, hey, I feel like I've been doing well with this. Or how do you feel like you've been doing with this? Like, if that's a conversation, then okay, have it over there. But like, for those of you who are making those self-realizations, like Amber is telling you to do, Kristin will very passionately tell you, please don't go on social media right now and give yourself a pat on the back and say, I'm doing good.
I gave myself stickers. I did this. I'm woke now. Yes, I'm here. No, don't do that.
Right.
Don't do that. Maybe you can share some of the things that you've done within yourself and some of the action steps of what you're, you know, how you're taking that and what that's going to go toward. But it shouldn't just be like, hey, here's a picture of me and my Black friend. I went to the protest. I Instagrammed it, some graffiti, like make it, there has to be some depth to that reflection and having those action steps. Like Amber was talking about, it has to be something that to me is tangible. There has to be something that is going to happen from it. And I especially, if you have children, I don't want people to fear talking about race.
Yeah.
Black people talk about race with their children. Yeah, it's not a bad word. Like, and I know that your kid knows I'm Black. Your kid probably is the one next to me in the Target bathroom stall that's like, that lady's feet are Black. And you're like, shh, no, don't. Right? You're all embarrassed at the sink, like, I'm so sorry. It's okay.
And you're like, my feet are Black. So.
Yeah, I'm Black. It's all right. Okay? It is totally
more open and ready to have a conversation than you are. So
right? Like, and that should tell you how quickly they notice these things. Like, they notice these things. When people are always like, I don't see color, I'm like, do you see me? What color am I? Okay, so you do see me. But it's okay to talk about race. If you have kids, have books with, multicultural themes, and have a library that's full of diverse stories. Make sure that you're looking at the accuracy of Black history that you're telling. Are you telling the whitewashed version of it? Or are you, kind of saying that these things were hard? I have the perspective of having a parent who went to the March on Washington and lived through segregation, and she can talk about riding in the colored section of the train. Like, I had that. I don't need a book on it. I had that. But if you don't have that perspective, you have to talk about those things. And it's uncomfortable, but it's a reality. And, we want our kids to know better and do better. It's not too early to talk to them and expose them to different people and different perspectives. It can't be something that you are afraid of. So when you're making those action steps for yourself, really think about what that looks like for your family as well. Are you going to go to the International Festival the next time that we can actually leave our houses? Or are you going to read some, multicultural books together, or watch a movie that has a diverse cast in it, or something where people are seeing minorities and Black people in a positive light? Because whether you notice it or not, I'll give you a task for the week. Watch the news.
Yeah.
And when you watch the news over the next week or two, I want you to watch the stories. I want you to watch the stories and see how many Black people you see in mugshots. I want you to watch stories and see how many stories where you don't see a mugshot, and see if you can go online and look it up and see the mugshot of the person, because they're probably not going to be Black, even if a story is talked about. We can even have stories where somebody Black died or had some sort of accident, where we can manage to go find an old mugshot, but we can't find their cute Facebook photo or whatever, like we can with somebody else. But really look at what it is that you are seeing portrayed and figure out, how can I look at this and how can I show this in my home where people can see that Black people aren't bad people, aren't violent people, aren't aggressive people, aren't threatening people. Even the word riots right now that's being thrown around left and right, like it's just all over the place. The riots that are happening. There are more peaceful protests going on right now than rioting.
That's not the news cycle right now.
That's not newsworthy, because unless there's something dramatic and drastic, the news doesn't want to cover it.
Yeah, I mean, my mother said that hearing that word riot triggers memories of the news of seeing dogs sicked on people and hoses. And you know, she's almost 80 years old. That's what that triggers for her. And she's like, it just rolls off some white people's tongues. Like it just rolls on out. Protest, like that's nowhere to be found. Like it's you know, just those little things and how things are chosen to be described in what you're exposed to. Because you have to kind of break that down so that is not the only thing that you see that's portrayed about Black people, because there are plenty of us that aren't violent and aren't mean and scary and whatever. But there's a big media portrayal of what it is to be Black and what it means to be Black. And I'm like, Black people are all so different. You got Candace Owens over here, you got Oprah over here. I mean, you have people like all across the spectrum, all across political beliefs. You got Black people who love Donald Trump. You got Black people who hate Donald Trump. You got all, like, we're not all the same. And sometimes it's like people still try to fit us into this box, and you know, we're diverse ourselves. So really look at how your interactions and what you're seeing regarding us, what that looks like, and evaluate that. Simple things. Look at the news.
And understanding that your 1, 3, 5, 10 Black friends do not speak for every Black person also. Right? So like I try to preface like, this is my experience, but like Kristin's experience could be completely different. Someone who grew up in New York, their experience is completely different. Someone who grew up in West Virginia, completely different experience. So like I don't speak, my voice is not the Black voice. It is only a Black voice.
All right, you guys, we could probably go on for hours, because I know I go on for hours on the phone with all y'all anyways. Kristin's poor son, the other day, the two of us are on a call and we're just like, and her poor son is like, Mommy, are you done yet? And I was like,
it's been more than 10 minutes.
Yeah, we said 10 minutes. I think I told Chanel the same thing too. And she's like, oh no, girl, I'm long-winded. And I'm like, good, I have all the time in the world right now, let's talk. By the way, Chanel lost her internet and then tried to go to one place and couldn't get in, and then tried to go to Starbucks and they were already closed. So she tried to come back. So I think what we might do is either I'll figure out maybe we just continue the same conversation again next week. And I'm okay with that. One of the things that I do want to do in an upcoming community chat is talk about how we can collaborate with and support Black business. Because right now, small business has already been hurt so much with everything that's happened with COVID, but I think there's also a big awakening too with the idea of like, it's okay to say like, I want to support your business, and yeah, that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day. So I don't know what, we could go off for another couple hours, but I want to make sure that we walk away with actionable steps. So Kristin, you encouraged us to go ahead and look at the news and really take a self-reflection on how the news portrays people slightly with a bias, depending on race. And you'll see that a lot. And as a white person, if you go to the news right now and you look through and you look at that through the eyes of what Kristin just shared with you, I think you're going to have a very big realization. Amber, I want to jump back over to you too, because you started to encourage us to really take a look at ourselves, and take a look at, you know, realizing what the problems in ourselves are, because if we don't realize what's wrong, we can't fix it.
Right.
And that's something I've always said, and as an educator, like, if you don't know what you're doing wrong, then you don't know how to fix it. So if you sit down, and you may not even see it as wrong, but I may put a plug in here. A member of ours, Jess Rotenberg, who's amazing, sent me a link a couple weeks ago on the implicit bias test.
Oh, yeah, the Harvard implicit bias
Harvard,
test.
yeah, right. And it was really, really eye-opening, because essentially what they do is they take you through this test to see whether or not how quickly you react with word associations to different faces depending on their facial features. Because if I remember that one correctly, it's in black and white, so you don't technically see skin color. You do see tones. But it was really, really interesting, because as a white person, I took this test and I'm terrified. I'm like, oh my gosh, what are the results going to say? But it was really interesting to just say, okay, like, it measures your brain and how your brain functions. So you couldn't even really try and
cheat it.
You can't cheat it. Right. And I literally sat there the entire time going, oh my gosh, what is this going to tell me at the end? But it was really insightful. And so Harvard, they will give that link when we send out tomorrow too. But they have not only the implicit bias test on race, but they also have it. There was a really interesting one. I think there's maybe like a dozen of them.
There's because we all have implicit bias. We cannot escape the fact that we have bias. If you have eyeballs, if you have the five senses, if one of them work, you have developed bias over your life, right? Mm-hmm. Probably the only a brand new newborn baby child does not have bias. They don't have anything.
They have a bias to get coming out of the womb, though. Your baby cry coming out, they're not happy.
Right.
Oh goodness. Okay, so after we take a look at ourselves, what can we do next?
I think that the first thing that is important is, if you're wanting to change, is to say, like, okay, this does not have to control how I behave going forward. So there's a reconciliation period that I think is important for us to have with ourselves, so that we can then move past like what a piece of paper says and then start getting to work, right? And so the work part, I think, is, how can I unlearn? For me, it would be 40 years of experience. How can I unlearn why I'm afraid of Black men? How can I unlearn why I lock my doors in a certain part of town? What is that about? How do I unlearn that? And you unlearn that by like really just being acutely aware of what your actions are. Because most of these things that we do, we don't even realize we're doing them. We do them at such unconscious and subconscious level that, like, if I were to be riding in a car with somebody and they lock the door and I say, why'd you lock their door? They might say, like, I didn't lock the door, because they haven't even realized yet that they did it.
Yeah.
So it's like making a conscious effort to, whenever I drive downtown, I'm not going to lock the door. And decide that before you go. Whenever I'm walking down the street, I'm going to look every Black person in the eye and say hello, and make it, because that's how you learn things. You do it by repetition. So you have to unlearn in the same way in which you learn. So just like make a list of like 5 things that you can do this week to unlearn your implicit biases around race.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think that Amber also touched on earlier, that when you're doing some of that research stuff that we talked about in the beginning, like when you're actually trying to learn these things, that I think is a big part of that, kind of learning and reconciliation, that you're looking at it from the Black perspective, because to be empathetic, you can't be in somebody else's shoes, but still looking through your own lens. You have to step into somebody else's shoes and take on that persona to really understand that. And that can't be reflected coming from the white perspective.
Whenever you're talking to your Black friends, don't ask us, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Right? Like, we feel like crap right now. But ask us other questions, because and I actually posted a whole Instagram story about like, don't ask me how I'm doing, because it forces me to then relive why I feel the way I do, right? But
can you say that one more time?
Yeah, like if you say, Amber, how are you doing? It's not a productive question.
No,
because like
if
I say to you, Amber, like, I feel like crap, the world is falling apart, then I feel like I am going to end up consoling you, because you're gonna be like, oh,
I'm so sorry. I didn't
even mean to ask you all. And then now I'm consoling you for you're feeling bad because I feel like crap. Like that's not the way it should work.
That's not how this works.
So to avoid that, ask questions like, how are you taking care of yourself today?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Are you resting? Have you eaten? Have you hugged somebody that you love today? Has anyone taken anything off of your plate? How can I be of service to you?
Oh, these are so good, because it is like you literally want to go up to your friends. And I jokingly said, I was out on a walk the other day, and I saw this family and they just looked so stressed. And I'm like, and it was right after everything was happening. I'm like, I just want to give them a hug. I don't know the words to say. I don't know the things to do. And asking somebody right now if they're okay is not an okay thing to ask, because you really don't want to look at that. So you said asking things like, are you taking care of yourself?
Are you feeling supported? How can I support you? How can I make you feel loved? Like, what things are you hearing that you
ask? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. I have like a whole list. I'll send them to you, because I saved them in my stories. There's like 7 or 8 questions.
We'll post them in our stories too.
But it just is having I feel like, and I said this, and this sometimes I feel I wonder, like, okay, is this going to sound hard, right? Yeah. But white friends, if you want to help your Black friends, it is time for you to be in service of them. And I don't mean like you need to do their laundry, but of course, if you want to do their laundry, like, that helps, right? I had a friend come and cook dinner for us. That helped. Like, I hate when people say, what's for dinner? Like, that's the question that's the bane of my whole day. But like, and I said, like, basically Black folks have been in service to white people for the last 451 years. Right? And it is true.
It is.
And so if you really want to do something, find a way to be in service of, and whether that is cooking a meal, walking a dog, or just having a conversation where you don't say anything.
Send a card. I got some cards. Those were nice. Send a card. Like, if you don't know, they're just like, I love you. Like, something.
Service is not necessarily like you physical labor, right? And I think that, like, for most people that are in the Vend Raleigh group, we are Christian-based hearts. And so, like, if you don't know what service is, just, I'm sure it's mentioned probably a zillion times in the Bible. But having a service-led heart and like figuring out, like, how can I be of service to you today? How can I make you feel loved and supported today? And sometimes that is like, I'm going to say, like, there's nothing today. Like, and maybe it's because, like, today I feel so crappy that there's literally nothing. And maybe it's, I feel great today and there's literally nothing. And then most days there's going to be something in between.
Yeah. See, I'm the person, I'm like, I'm always, how can I help? What can I do? I always feel like if somebody's feeling down, I'm a fixer. I'm a big empathy person. Like,
you're too.
I know Amber's going to call me out. For those of you who have been in our community chats earlier, we've talked about Enneagrams a lot. I cannot wait until we can host one of those classes. But that's me. I always feel like I want to help somebody. And so I really, really appreciate you sharing that list of things, of ways that we can help our friends who might need some extra help right now. Okay, it's already 9:30, you guys. I know we had stupid technical difficulties, but we could carry this on for forever. I will say there was one question that somebody asked a way back. Kareem asked a question, and you know what, because this could open up a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day. Ladies, if you want to jump on and maybe just give him a little bit of
I read his question, and so I will Kareem.
I was like,
Got you.
I saw Kareem and I'm like, hold on, I'll ask. And then there was never an appropriate time to stop the conversation to ask, because like that is a whole big conversation.
Now I want to go see what it says. I'm gonna.
You have to go see what it says. So ladies, you know what? I may say that maybe we do this again. If you guys might be open to it next week, we can continue this. I know you guys are so open to it, and that's why I can.
Coronavirus. I mean, I'm just at home in the house
right now.
Bed, food. I don't know. I have heard Avery has stopped singing, so she must be in bed by now.
She is.
So
she won't go to sleep until I go tuck her in. So
I love that. And well, I know you guys too, like I know that you guys probably had so many more things on those lists of things that you wanted to talk about. So if y'all are okay with it, maybe we just keep this conversation going next week. And then maybe because we've already kind of shared a lot of stuff, maybe we invite some of the community members to come in and join on this one too. What do you guys think?
Sounds good.
I like that idea. Okay, and then Chanel, Kyla Harrell, thank you. It looks like she said that Chanel was trying to get over to the co-working station, but maybe we'll just get her in on the
Bless her heart.
She was trying so hard. Chanel, we love you. So here's the plug I'm going to put for her. Impact Holly Springs, or if you are in our area, it is an amazing group where literally she started it with the sole purpose of, she saw a whole bunch of white people on the Ladies of Holly Springs had questions and were being ridiculed for the questions that they were asking because they were being vulnerable. And they said, I don't know what to do. Is it okay to say these things? I don't know. And she felt like she wanted to open up a safe place for those questions and those conversations to be had, where people felt like they could be honest and vulnerable without being judged beyond belief about some places that are happening. So Impact Holly Springs, there's going to be a march that they are helping support and put together in Holly Springs this Saturday. They held off on it. It's going to be on the 20th because of Juneteenth on Friday. They wanted to do that in honor of following the day after. So you can take a look for that. Go look for Impact Holly Springs. There's information on the march. It's going to be starting in Grigsby, coming down through downtown on Saturday afternoon. So if you want to take a peek at that, do so. But I think we'll have her back again next week, see how this goes. So a couple things. Amber, do you have any last things that you want to share?
No, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for your heart. Thank you for the changes. I really feel like this is an amazing opportunity to kind of put in motion a lot of amazing things.
I'm super excited. I'm so thankful for you. Amber was like, so can we change it to next week? Can we do this? Can we do this? And she said, yes, just tell me when and I will be there. So I'm so thankful. Kristin, do you have any parting thoughts for us?
I just think that there's been so much great information shared tonight. I think the most profound and important thing Amber just touched on when she was talking about that not all, like, we are the voice of ourselves. We are not the voice of the Black community as a whole. And there will be people that are like, absolutely, I don't agree with that, or I don't see it that way. And that's okay. But just continue learning and reflecting and growing. Don't let it be something that starts a confusion. If you're like, oh my gosh, I heard somebody Black say something different and now I just don't know what to do, so I'm going to stop. Keep pushing through that in that learning process.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so I guess we're going to continue this conversation because I love you guys and you're so amazing. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So those in the community who have been watching, I'm going to put out another thing, but I bet the wonderful things these ladies have shared have probably sparked some questions in you. So if you do have some questions, feel free, you can send them to me, just send them straight to hello@bendraleigh.com. And then we can talk about this some more next week. Couple things real quick. Amber, if somebody wants to connect with you, where can they find you at?
All of my social media is at Images by Amber R, 2 R's at the end. So you can find me on all of I'm not on TikTok. Don't look for me on TikTok. I'm not on Snapchat, but I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and
all the other platforms.
Anything that doesn't require a filter or a dance, you can find me at Images by Amber R.
I feel like your singing child probably you could probably do a whole family dance video. Like,
don't encourage it, Pat. I don't have the time to keep up with it.
She would. Give her her own TikTok.
I can hear you.
Hi, Avery, we love you.
She's like, yes, encourage her to let me make my music video.
She told me she wants to be TikTok famous.
Oh God, she would. All right, Miss Kristin, where can everybody find you at?
My page, Spectrum Navigation Services, is there on Facebook. You can find me under that.
I'm so excited. All right, you guys, everyone, thank you for showing up tonight. Thank you for hanging out. You can always find us at @VenRaleigh on Facebook and Instagram. If you're not a part of our community subgroups on Facebook, reach out to me. Let me get you into those, because those are where the amazing discussions happen throughout the week. And so one shameless plug, you guys, we have some insanely exciting news that we are sharing tomorrow. I will be sharing it here on VenRaleigh and across a handful of other platforms, because I have been working on something for over a year, and we're bringing VenRaleigh into it, and I can't even control my excitement right now. But you will find out something huge we have been working on for a long time tomorrow. So I can't wait to share that with you guys. So keep an eye on social media tomorrow. We'll take a peek at that, and then we'll talk about that stuff more next week too. But Kristin and Amber, thank you so much for being here. You are amazing ladies, and thank you for opening your hearts and being vulnerable and calling us out and putting us in our places, and just encouraging everyone out there to keep working, and to keep working in those small little tiny changes will add up to big things down the road. So thank you guys, and I guess we'll connect later, since we'll come back again later. All right, y'all are awesome. Thank you guys, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Good night.
Night.